I must have a singular purpose that I need to find. And I'm put here to do this one thing. And if I don't figure it out, I'm a total failure, right? Like that started all of those stories, which are not helpful. And like you said, you think about what you love, and then, but then at the same time, there's all this pressure, especially when you're, in your 20s, to choose a career that's going to offer stability and success, or whatever, that definition is for you, or that's put on you, I should say, right? Yeah. So when you're talking about your purpose, it's like, what are the beliefs that are driving me to feel this way, and how can I challenge them?
Hi there, this is Sarah Kuhn. If you are an INFJ or in a relationship with an INFJ or related to an INFJ in any way, and you want to figure out how they operate, what makes them tick, and how to communicate with them better, this is the show for you. It's called The Quiet Ones. This is a show that deconstructs INFJs, what they are, how they think, how they feel, how they operate, and how they relate to people with other personality types. Whether you have just found out that you're an INFJ or have known for a number of years, there is something for everyone. You will learn more about your personality type so that you understand who you are and understand how you operate in the workplace, in relationships, in your family, and with friends. I want you to walk away from every episode feeling like you have a place of belonging, feeling like you are no longer alone, feeling like you have a place to be heard and seen and understood as you really are. This is a place to connect with other INFJs, to learn and grow and really thrive. I want to give you inspiration and real-life strategies that are going to help you figure out how to live your best life every single day. Though INFJs are very rare, you are not alone in this world. You are not the only one who thinks the way that you do and feels the way that you do. Hear from real INFJs just like you. Hi there, I'm Sarah Kuhn. Welcome to another episode of The Quiet Ones. I hope that you guys are doing well this week. I know that there's a lot going on in the world and it's really, really difficult. I had a really difficult weekend myself. On Friday, I got some news that a member of my family is very sick. They have a life-altering condition. It's not the coronavirus, but because of the virus, it's making it very difficult for them to go to the doctor and to get the care that they need. I know that it's really easy for some of us, me included, to say, okay, I'm young, if I get this thing, it's not really that big of a deal. I'll probably be okay. But I really, really want to ask you to consider the other people in your lives as well, and to consider the other people in all of our lives. It's more than just us. It's our family members. It's our parents and our grandparents. They're being affected in so many ways by this thing. And the faster that it comes to an end, the better that it will be for all of us. I know that a lot of people in the United States are being asked to stay at home. And I myself have only been outside of my apartment twice this week, once to get groceries and once to wash my clothes because I don't have a washer and dryer in my house. And both times that I went out, I am still shocked and surprised by how many people are out and about. I live right across the street from a pretty popular beach just south of Boston, Massachusetts, and I can see the beach from my apartment window, and every single day I'm just shocked and surprised by how many people are out there. And there's no way that they're 6 feet apart. No way. And just because you're outside doesn't mean that you're safe. So I really just want to ask you again to make sure that you're taking this thing seriously. I know it's difficult to be inside all the time. Even for me as an introvert, I love to be at home, but after 2 weeks of being at home, it's like, okay, I really want to go outside. I really want to do something different. But it's so important for us and for our families to stay inside until this thing is over. I sent out an email this week too, asking all of you what you're struggling with the most. And a lot of people responded that the thing that they're struggling with the most is anxiety and worrying about the future and not really knowing what to do with all of the time that they have now. Especially those of you that are cooped up in houses with a bunch of other people, especially if they're extroverts. I'm very fortunate myself to live by myself. So I've been using all of this free time as constructively as possible. And I would encourage you to do the same thing. I know that it's really, really difficult to not focus on what's going on right now. And it's hard to see past this, but I promise you that there is something that's coming that's past this. We will get to the end of it. Even if you just look at the countries that came before us, like China, they're doing a whole lot better than what they were just a couple of months ago. And Italy is getting to the worst part from what I've read. And hopefully they'll be on the upswing soon. And that leaves us next in line to recover. So I really, really have to look at the positives. And I encourage you to do the same thing. There are a lot of different things that you can do to manage anxiety. For those of us like myself who struggle with anxiety all the time, it's kind of natural for us, right? Because we always feel like it's the end of the world. Every single day of our lives, we feel like that. And so now when we come to a situation like this, where it really actually feels like it could be the end, as some people, are making it seem that way, we already know how to manage anxiety because we do it every single day. One of the biggest things that you can do to help is to practice mindfulness. And I wanted to walk you through what that looks like really quickly right now. And there's also a link in the show notes that will explain it a lot more in depth. So the first thing that you do is to simply notice your environment. Rather than becoming consumed with your thoughts and emotions and feelings, just simply notice what they are. Observe what it is that you're feeling and see it outside of you rather than letting yourself be consumed by it. I always think about it like it's something that I'm holding in my hands and I'm holding it out in front of me. I think about it like a box or a ball or something that you can hold in your hands. Because for me, when I have a feeling like anxiety or fear, especially fear of the future, I want to take it straight to heart and let it consume me. But when you practice mindfulness, you imagine yourself holding it out in front of you. And while you're holding it out in front of you, that gives you the opportunity to look at it, to see what it is, to notice it without letting it consume you, right? So when you do that, you're able to look at it and to say, okay, I understand that I have this really bad anxiety. I'm concerned for the future. I don't think that we're going to make it out of this. And I'm really, really scared. I'm scared that I won't get to go on my vacation that I had planned. I'm scared that my family isn't going to live. I'm scared that I'm never going to fulfill my purpose in this earth. I'm scared that I'm never going to get married and never going to have kids. So you can look at that and say, okay, I understand that this is a legitimate fear, but is it practical right now? Is it exactly what I need to be thinking about right now? Is it going to help me get through this right now? And when you look at this fear that you have and you notice it when it's outside of you, it's a whole lot easier for you to say, okay, this isn't practical. We don't know what's going to happen. I don't know where we're going to be a month from now, because a month ago, I never thought we would be here. And I certainly don't know where we're going to be a year from now. So instead of saying, okay, I'm completely consumed in this, I don't know what to do, I can't think about anything past this, you're able to look at that and say, you know what, this feeling, this emotion, this anxiety, it doesn't serve me. It's not what's good for me. And so instead of taking it to heart and let it consuming me, I can put it down. And I can find something else that will help me during this time. I can choose hope instead of fear. I can choose love instead of fear. I can choose serving others instead of fear. There's so many other things that you can do. It's not an easy process, especially when you get started. I know it kind of sounds very simple and a little bit easy, but it's not when you first get started, especially if you've never experienced anxiety and now you're consumed with it. It's very difficult. But the more that you do it, the easier that it will get, and the more that it will make a difference for you as well. I would also really, really encourage you to keep yourself busy. And I know that it's really easy to say, okay, I'm just going to sit and watch Netflix and I'm going to scroll through social media. Those are some of the worst things that you can do. Now, I'm not saying don't watch Netflix or TV or Hulu or whatever it is that you watch. I'm not saying that. There's definitely a time and a place for that. But if you're doing it constantly, especially if you're scrolling through social media constantly, INFJs, as empaths, we soak up everything that we see. We soak up everybody else's emotions, especially everybody's negative emotions. So if a lot of your friends and family are on social media and they're scared and they're concerned and they're not posting things that are helpful or positive for you, you're soaking all of that up. Not only your family and friends, but the news, which is another reason why I suggest that you don't pay attention to the news, not for long periods of time. If you're going to watch the news, limit yourself to 5 or 10 minutes a day and find a reliable source that sticks to the facts, because that's the most important things right now, is knowing what's going on in a way that is helpful and not in a way that is going to hurt your emotional state. So I would encourage you to think about some of the things that you want to do, some of the things that you've been putting off because you don't have enough time. A lot of people right now are working from home, and there are an unbelievable amount of people who are unemployed. And if you find yourself unemployed, there's so many things that you can do. I know what it's like to be unemployed. I was unemployed for almost a year, just a couple of years ago. And it's the worst feeling in the world. It was for me then because the economy was fine. It was just that I couldn't find a job. And now it's a lot different because you're not the only one who's unemployed. There's a lot of people and there really isn't a lot that you can do about it. It's not like you can just go find a job right now. But there are still a lot of things that you can do. If you're interested in starting a business, if you're interested in blogging or starting a podcast, there are ways that you can do those things for relatively low cost. And when I say low cost, I mean like $50. That's how I started. I would be more than happy to talk to you about it if that's something that you're interested in. I'm putting together some free resources to help you start something like that. So definitely reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram at INFJwoman, or you can send me an email, which is skuhn@infjwoman.com. And I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it and to help you through it, and to help you with any kind of advice that I can offer you. Starting my blog has been one of the biggest, best, most amazing things that I've done in my life. And I really want to help and encourage anybody else who wants to start something like that. Not only because it's helped me to find my purpose and to connect with so many people, but because it gives me something to do. It's a lot of work. It's not easy, but it's fun. It's so much fun. And that's the best thing that you can do if you're unemployed, is to keep yourself busy. Even if you don't want to start a blog or a podcast, I'm sure that you have a list of things that you want to do. Closets that you need to clean out, or, you know, you need to reorganize something, or there's that cookbook that you've always wanted to put together, organize your pictures, maybe you do scrapbooks, things like that. Anything like that it's a great way to stay busy and to accomplish some projects while you're at home, and use your time effectively. So, all right, just one more thing, a real quick update on my book. It is coming out next week. You guys, I'm so excited. I cannot wait for you to read it. I've really poured my heart and soul into this thing. I've written it twice, and it's just really completely amazing. I've learned so much from writing it too. If you pre-order my book, you can still get access to the bonuses, but they're just going to be available until April 5th. So make sure that if you're interested in the bonuses, that you get in on it this week. There's one more masterclass that's called Turn Your Blog into a Profitable Business. That is going to happen this coming Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. You can also get access to the previous 2 masterclasses that we did. They are recorded. There's one about how to start a podcast, and there's one about how to find your purpose. You also get free membership into the INFJ community for 3 months, and you get a free ebook called What to Do When You're INFJ, which has a whole bunch of different scenarios in it about difficult situations that INFJs get into and how to handle those things. So if you're interested, please go check it out. The ebooks will be emailed to you on Monday, April 6th. And if you ordered a printed book, it will be coming to you very shortly as well. I also wanted to make just a quick note that I'm changing the way that my episodes are being numbered. So you'll see that the episode last week was numbered episode 12, which is season 2, episode 12. And I decided to change that and just to add all of the episodes together. So rather than going season 1, season 2, to just add them all up. So this week's episode is episode 40. That will make it a lot easier for you to be able to find the show notes, which are on my website. Okay, so let's get to today's guest. Today we're talking to Kristin Mangus, who is a career coach. And I'm so excited for you to hear her interview. Kristin and I talked for over 3 hours while we were doing this interview. So it was really, really difficult for me to pick the best parts of the conversation and to really organize it in a way that made sense. So I wanted to let you know that when the interview starts, it sounds like we're in the middle of a conversation, because we actually are. But I promise you, within like 2 sentences, you're going to figure out exactly where we are. We go right into talking about how to find your purpose, which I know so many people are concerned with. Not only is there an episode that you're listening to right now, but there will be another bonus episode that comes out on Thursday, where Kristin talks a whole lot more about her business and how she found out about her personality type. So make sure that you check out the episode on Thursday as well. Just a little bit more about Kristin. For nearly 2 decades, Kristin has been helping brands from scrappy entrepreneurs to Fortune 500 companies develop strategies and solutions in talent development, team effectiveness, performance management, and organizational behavior. Within this work, she especially loves discovering and curating the best ideas, research, and strategies, and distilling them into simple concepts, insight-driven activities, and practical tools that are easy to apply. Kristin is casual, refreshingly honest, and focused on real solutions that actually work. And just a reminder, you can watch the interview on YouTube at youtube.com/thequietoncespodcast. And again, there's a special bonus episode that's coming out on Thursday as well. Also, make sure you go to thequietoncespodcast.com/episode 40 for all the links and show notes that we discuss in the show.
You know, I feel like part of my approach with people too is, and I've been really doing this myself, is just embracing who you are and allowing yourself to be more of who you are. I think I sent you an article that also supported that HBR article around how it really pays to be yourself in the workplace more than ever, right? And just like the freedom of, I know a lot of organizations are trying to create environments where people feel like inclusive environments, right? Of, you know, belonging. But I think also, so that's very helpful, right? If you have an organization that is working to do that and create that space for you. But also I think you have to, on some level, give yourself permission to be yourself, right? To stop trying to be, and for me, and when you think about like, Myers-Briggs, there are some of those elements that, and I'm sure this is true with everybody, right? Like we fail to focus on where we're strong. And instead, sometimes we focus more on what we think are our gaps or our opportunities, right? Or our weaknesses, depending on whatever word, you want to use. And so you're like, well, then how do I be more extroverted? Or how do I, right? And it's like, no, like let's just stop that shit right now. and really focus on like, how can I give myself permission to be more of who I am? Because one, that's who I was made to be or meant to be. And two, like that's where I'm going to offer the most value, right? So how do I focus on that? And so for me, one of the things that makes me who I am is like, I have a lot of interest in a lot of different things. And so rather than trying to just limit myself to one thing, I've tried to create a space where I can do more than one thing and make it work. Still trying to, so yeah.
Yes. I love all of it. I'm taking notes. This is what I'm doing. So when you see me looking down, it's not because I'm not paying attention. I'm taking notes so that I know exactly what I want to ask you about.
Yeah.
So I know that I do have a lot of content about careers. It's because a lot of people ask me about it. And so I'm trying to build more and more and more because a lot of INFJs are helplessly lost when it comes to what should I do with my life? We have this whole bigger purpose type of thing that's like, I want to do something really big, but I have no idea what it is. And my experience and a lot of experiences of people that I've spoken to already is nobody knows what to do with that. You don't know what to do with it yourself. And when you start talking to your parents and your teachers and your friends, they're all like, what, you think you're better than everybody else? Or, oh, what's wrong with just being normal? And it's not like we don't want to be normal. It's just that we feel like we're supposed to do something special. Yeah. And that doesn't, for me, it kind of translated into almost famous or exclusive because I worked with professional athletes for a while. And then I realized that wasn't it. That wasn't what I wanted to do. So it's really just working through this process of what am I supposed to do? And then having resources to help you figure that out, because there is some information about what career is right for people with specific personality types. And you read those things and you're like, I don't really want to be a counselor. I don't want to take on other people's feelings, and a lot of it is, it's information that are traditional careers, because nobody talks about being a life coach, because a lot of people don't see that as being a legitimate career. And it's also something that's pretty new. It's definitely new to me. Only in the last year have I really understood what that is. Yeah. So people don't talk about writing and arts and, singing and all of that kind of stuff because they don't see that as a stable type of career. Right. If you go to work and you sell insurance, then you should be more stable than if you want to write a blog for a living. Yep. Technically and theoretically, until you get into a situation like I was in. I worked for a company that was 125 years old, that is a household name, and all of a sudden I got laid off because they were downsizing. And it's like, oh, this isn't really stable like I thought it was. This isn't the right thing to do, Yeah. So,
well, and there's so much to unpack there, right? Because there's so many beliefs, right? I mean, like within just those statements, there's so many limiting beliefs, right? Mm-hmm. And I know I was, oh my gosh, for like almost 2 decades, right? Really had a lot of stress and anxiety around like, what's my purpose? And unfortunately, I read the book, The Purpose-Driven Life in high school or something. And that really, I mean, like, I must have a singular purpose that I need to find. And I'm put here to do this one thing. And if I don't figure it out, I'm a total failure, right? Yeah. Like that started all of those stories, which are not helpful. And like you said, you think about what you love, and then But then at the same time, there's all this pressure, especially when you're, in your 20s, to choose a career that's going to offer stability and success or whatever, that definition is for you, or that's put on you, I should say, right?
Yeah.
So when you're talking about your purpose, it's like, what are the beliefs that are driving me to feel this way? And how can I challenge them in a way that's going to really serve me, right? So for me, when I, now kind of like what I've learned through that journey is a few things. And one is like, I don't believe there's a singular purpose, right? For each purpose that we're meant to find. I definitely don't think it's something you can identify and then pursue, right? Like it's something that evolves over time. It's something that when you look back on your life, you might see like in these different instances, right? I think it doesn't need to be attached to your career. Like who said that your purpose is your career? There's so many like things that I feel like I've challenged within my own beliefs, that it's like, wow, like if somebody had like sat me down when I was 20 years old,
Right?
no, forget about all of that. Forget about all of that, right? And there's so many ways to like fulfill, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just part of it is showing up as who you are, right? I think I see in corporate America, and I see in so many people, we look to so many people to validate, like, what should I do? What are my strengths? What's my potential? What's my worth? What's my value, right? Like I know a lot of career coaching advice sometimes says, like if you don't know what to do, ask people what they appreciate about you. Ask people what they value about you and what's the value you bring. And it's like, well, why am I assuming that what somebody values in me is what is going to light me up? You know what I mean? It's like, I might be good at something. They might appreciate that about me, but that doesn't mean that's what I'm meant to do.
Right.
Like, why am I not looking inside and asking myself, some questions that are going to help me really? So I think part of it is just, there's so many, there's just so many like places where like this, we're being, I don't know, how do I say that? There's so many reinforcers, right? To that belief, right? It's like, oh, and in corporate, right? It's like my manager gives me my performance review, right? My manager tells me what I'm doing well and where I should be doing better, right? And really like the best person to assess me and my strengths is myself, right? Like what do I enjoy doing? What makes me feel stronger? What makes me feel weaker? And so, yeah, there's so much that you can do, I think, or like advice or ways that you can help people. Maybe like let go of some of the things that they've heard or the direction that they've been, taking, and really help them like tap into that intuition and inner wisdom and help them reflect on, if I were to like let go of some of that, like,
You said stuck in the same patterns that we're creating ourselves. I saw this video this morning that resonated with me so much. Do you know who Mel Robbins is?
I do. I know who she is.
So she had this video where she was talking about, she's like, I've always wanted a six-pack. And this really resonates with me because I've been trying to lose weight for my whole life.
Yeah.
And she's like, I really want a six-pack. But then I thought about a year down the road, if I actually had one, what do my habits look like for having one? She's like, well, I had to quit drinking, and I wouldn't be able to eat carbs, and I would have to go exercise frequently. And she's like, but here's the thing. I like to drink and I like to eat carbs and I don't like to exercise. She goes, but I've had this idea that I'm going to have a six-pack, but I'm not actually going to do it because I don't want to do all of the things that it takes for me to do it. So right. What I'm really going to do, what I need to do is let go of the idea that I'm ever going to have a six-pack and stop feeling guilty that I don't have one.
Right. And you're continuously setting yourself up to feel shitty about not having something. And also, what does a six-pack even represent to you? Like, why do you want a six-pack? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, that was a lot of what she was talking about too. She's like, what does it matter? What would your life be better if you actually had that? Would you feel better about yourself? Would people treat you differently? And if you really believe that, then are you really committed to that goal? Or maybe you just need to be around different people in your life who treat you the same regardless of what you look like.
Right. there's really, there was some great advice. This was a couple years ago, and I can't remember where I heard it, but it made so much sense. So she was talking about finding, I think the word was expanders, but like finding people to expand your perception, right, of what is realistic, what is normal, what is right. And so one of the examples was like, if you think about the people that even you follow on Instagram, right, like let's be more intentional about what we're putting in front of our faces, because that's conditioning our beliefs all the time, right? So how about and at the time I thought this was great advice, and I did it. So at the time I went on Instagram and I found women who had different body types that were just rocking it, that were so confident, that looked amazing. And I started following them so that those were the images that I would see in my feed, right? Because we can choose what we see and what we don't. I mean,
yes.
And again, it's 100% influencing our perception of what is acceptable, what is right, what is true, what is good. And it was really cool. Like, you know what I mean? And then after a while, you don't like start to notice bodies at all. You're just, you know what I mean? You're yeah. And it was just a really cool exercise, and you can do it with anything, right? Like, so if you're thinking about like, I don't know, whatever it is that you want or that you think you want. But yeah, it's just a really cool practice. It's like, well, why do I want this? Yeah. And
I love what you said about social media, because so many people say and think that social media is this terrible, awful thing, and it's a terrible influence, and it just sucks the life out of you and all of your time and all of these things. And I think that it can be that if you let it, but I feel like we have a lot of control over it that sometimes we don't even recognize.
Yeah.
And this past year has really been this really big year that's been an awakening thing for me. And I don't know if I'm just getting older or if I've surrounded myself with better people. I don't know, but I know that that's a big part of it, is what you're exposing yourself to, the people that you have around you. When you're around people who are constantly telling you, you don't look good enough, you don't act right, you're not enough, you can't do the thing that you want to do, then you're going to start to believe all of those things.
Yeah.
But when you surround yourself with people who are like encouraging you and your dreams, and who have the same dreams and are going after those things every single day, and you're building each other up and lifting each other up, then it's a whole different experience. You know, it can be exactly what you make it. And even if it's your friends or people who you think are your friends or your family members, there's an unfollow button and there's a block button. You can unfollow them without unfriending them, you know?
No, that's so true. And it's like, and that, yeah, you're right. That pertains to like in person and on social media, right? Like the groups that you're in, the people you follow, what you put in front of you. I know another good example, right? Is like, let's say it's also, so like, find people to expand your perception in that way, but then also like look to prove yourself wrong. So our brains are wired to validate our beliefs, right? So, any situation as we're going through life, we are scanning for things and we're interpreting things in a way that validate what we already believe. So if I think, let's say I work in fitness, and I believe that I have to have a six-pack in order to be a fitness coach, right? And I'm like, so I have this belief and it's stressing me out and I feel not enough, right? All the time. And how am I going to get clients? And and then so I can say, well, if I were to prove myself wrong, what if I were to do a search? Let me find some fitness coaches that don't have six packs. And then immediately, right? Like, oh, well, look at all these people that can be successful without looking a certain way, right? And look at the people that follow them and love them, and actually look at the good that they're doing and how they're, that's showing me it's possible for me to receive that, or you know what I mean? And so
yeah, and think about all of the clients like myself who wants a fitness coach and doesn't want somebody who looks perfect. I want somebody who looks real.
Somebody feel bad. And those people also are great too. Like maybe that's just how their bodies are, and they're supporting so many people and helping people in different ways. And it's just, but there's room for everyone. If there's room for all of it. And so I think you can use, like you said, like you can use social media. You have more control than you think, and you can use it in so many ways to to empower, to support yourself, and maybe change those perceptions that are holding you back, for sure. I like to talk about things that I care about. I'm sure you do too, right? Like I love to talk about things that I'm passionate about, and I just Yeah. I love to learn. Like you were talking about learning about digital marketing. Like there's so much that I study just because I love it. And I've been lucky enough that I've had a career where I can incorporate the things that I'm passionate about really covertly. Like, I can create my own passion project inside of my work, which really enabled me. I mean, it really helped me when I was in a full-time corporate job. And at the same time, it was a plus. And at the same time, I think it might have been a little bit of a hinder, because then it's like you have enough to keep you happy and fulfilled. And it's like, well, there's so many good things. But at the same time, it's like, but I know there's more. I know there's other things that I want to be doing. And for me, I had things and callings, or like, just like little whispers. I mean, like for years, there were always reasons like I'm too young, or, I have this, or I would leave and go to another job, right? And then I go to another, and then another, because I'm like, well, maybe it's just different work, or it's a different organization. And, like you probably, I mean, I'm sure you get this, like you're like pulled to the new and the possibilities and, the new people, the new projects, the fun, the creativity. And then you do it, and you're like, well, I don't want to be the one that sustains this. Like, I don't want to just be running this program for me. Right. I was like, so then I'd be like, on to the next thing, and so, that's like consulting also works out so well, because you can work on projects or portions of things without feeling guilty when you leave.
Yes. I have had one job after another one, and I keep telling myself it's because, well, I've moved several times, and then I got laid off, and but really the real reason is because I'm attracted to narcissistic people, and I've had terrible bosses, and every single boss has been the same, even though they're different people. And so it's like, okay, this is a terrible boss. It's a horrible situation. I'm going to tough it out until I get a new job, and the new job is going to be perfect, and it's going to be a whole better situation. And it's not, it's the same thing. And so, then you start looking at your resume, and you're like, oh, I really haven't had a job for more than a year in a few years. and then it gets really hard to find a new job. And then you're like, okay, what am I going to do now? Because all of my bosses are terrible, and I don't know why. And my friends are going, maybe it's you. And I'm like, why are you so mean to me? and then I realized that it was me, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, here's this whole other, self-realization type of thing. But then, just like what you said, I started my own business, and I'm like, I want to use all of the things that I love and make this something that I really enjoy doing all the time. And I was laying in bed last night at like midnight researching a new email marketing software, because I don't like the one that I have and I need something better. And I didn't even want to go to sleep, because I'm like, I found one that I like, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. Like, I can set the whole thing up, and I'm ready to start setting it up. And I'm like, why can't I see? Oh, it's because I'm so tired that my eyes keep falling down and I need to go to bed.
Well, I think a couple things there, right? Like, one is like, and I think this probably is more prevalent in women, but maybe not, right? So when we talk about the workplace, right? Like, and I know for me, my personal experience, like I got a lot of validation in corporate America, because I mean, I was good at what I did, right? Or what I do. And it's like, and I enjoyed it, and I loved it, and I had passion. And so I knew I did it. But at the same time, when somebody's like, oh, what do you want to do with your career? It's like, I mean, I like what I do. I know I don't want your job, right? Like, I don't feel like I can tell you that, because then, I know the system, I know how it works, right? And so, you kind of feel stuck, right? In this pattern. And so you think, for me, it was really hard to let go of, and I still haven't let go of it, because I'm still consulting part-time, right? But then, like, how it feels to be appreciated for the work that you do, right? Or the work that you can do, or the value you can add. And so I am constantly like detaching, and I actually took a really amazing assessment, and it had to do with eating. I want to say it was like it had to do with like how you should eat. But the gist of the assessment was, is basically, where does your self-worth come from, right? As a child, what were you valued for? And for me, it was accomplishments and achievements and being a certain, you know what I mean? And getting good grades, right? And so like you almost then create that conditioning and you really have to figure out that as an adult, like how do I let go of or detach from like this conditioning that I have to, I mean, it's really hard. For a long time, for the first couple of years where I was consulting, I just kept taking on more and more work and not like, so I said, I'm going to work part-time so I can spend more time with my kids, have flexibility, and start this other work that I've been wanting to do forever on the side, right? But I definitely, the first couple of years, sabotaged that desire and just kept taking on more work, more consulting work than I should have, right? Because it made me feel good. It made me feel needed. It made me feel, you know what I mean? And at one point I had to be like, I have to stop this because it's really, I mean, it's really keeping me. What I'm doing is I am intentionally, again, I'm recreating these situations where I'm keeping myself from what it is that I truly want, whether it's because I don't feel like it's possible, I don't feel like it's possible for me, I don't feel like I deserve it, right? Like no matter what the reason is, like it's me. So then how do I figure this out so that I can actually do the stuff I want to do and let go of who I was, like, right? Or, you know, that identity and that. And it's not something that just happens like that. And again, like that's what got me into like the, you know, more subconscious and understanding of subconscious and some of those patterns and behaviors. But
I've been on this journey of self-love. I've had a problem with confidence my whole life and I never understood why. And I listen to people tell me, you have a problem with confidence, you don't have enough. And I'm like, yeah, I know. So how do I fix it? And they're like, I don't know, I've never had that problem before, but you need to figure it out because it's a real problem. I'm like, okay. So I finally have really started to figure it out in the last couple of years. Like you said, I place all of my self-worth outside of me. So when I was growing up, I was the good girl who did everything right. I was the responsible child out of 4. I am the only one who's finished a college degree. I've always supported myself, have a full-time job, done all of the things. When I was in school, I had a 4.0. I was the teacher's pet. I was quiet and, again, the good girl. And when I started working, I found all of my validation from my bosses. And some of them hated my personality, but they loved my work. And it's like, that's fine. You don't have to like me as a person. As long as you like my work, that's cool. I'm good with that. But then I found myself in this job where the person who hired me was the owner of the company, and everybody at the company hated the owner. And so they hated me. And there was nothing that I could do that was right. And in fact, they didn't even want me to do anything. And they're paying me a lot of money to sit there and do nothing. And it was like this terrible experience for me because all of my value and worth for myself comes from making other people happy. But I kind of had this big realization that it doesn't matter what I do, they're never going to be happy and it has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, how do I find self-worth without being able to make other people happy? How does that work?
And when you look to so many people, like when you're pleasing all the people around you, right? And you're looking for that validation, that external validation from everyone around you, you drift so far away from like, what is it? You know what I mean? Like then when you sit down and try to think about like, well, what do I want to do? What does make me happy? I remember at one point I was really on this experiment to figure out like, you know, just to add more joy to my life, right? And I couldn't for the life of me figure out what brought me joy. Like I was sitting there, I was like, well, they're like, just, you know, do like, you know, whatever it is that it brings you joy, just add that into your day. And I was like, I was really at a loss and I still like struggle a little bit. It's like, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? And I'm like, who am I looking for to tell me whether it's right or wrong? I don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So much pressure on ourselves. Am I doing it right? According to who? I don't know. I'm asking myself all these questions, right?
Yeah.
So much pressure. But yeah. And then I was like, well, shit, like, I don't even know what to do. Even if I made the time in my day, right, to add more joy in my life, I don't even know what I would be doing. Yeah. And that was really depressing.
It's like, I need somebody to tell me what makes me happy. But and really, for me, what makes me happy is making other people happy.
So when
Right.
I'm happy when everybody else around me is happy, but then that means that if there's nobody around me or if nothing I can do makes them happy, then that makes me miserable. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't work out very well.
But I also need those words of appreciation. Like when you talk about love languages, mine is definitely like words of affirmation.
Yes,
Like you need to tell me
mine
what the
too.
difference I'm making in your life.
Mine too, and I don't know why that's so difficult for me to admit. I never want to say that. I want to say, no, it's quality time. No, it's gifts, because I really like people giving me gifts. But
I was like, it's all of it. No.
yeah, it's really the big thing that makes me really happy is when somebody says, you know, you're valuable. I really like what you're doing. You know,
I appreciate you.
Yes.
I appreciate the effort you're putting into this, or the
Yes.
thought. I know I actually started telling my husband maybe like last year, or even like sometimes now, I'll just be like, sometimes I'll be like, I just need you to tell me I'm doing a good job. I just need you to tell me that you appreciate, I need you to tell me, because I found myself being like, well, I did this and I did this. And he's like, yeah, okay, well, I did this and I did this. It's like,
Right.
well, I mean, but I need you to recognize.
That's the point.
I just need you. I was like, this is my love language. This is my number one love language. I need you. And sometimes I'll just tell him like straight up. I was like, I need you to tell me that you appreciate what I'm doing here. And
Right.
oh, yeah. And then he'll say all these nice things. And I'm like, okay, yeah. Because he's like, sometimes I just decided I'm just gonna remind him. I'm just gonna tell him. And I tell my kids and him, I'm like, you know, if I know your love language, like I will do my best to, you know what I mean, to love you in that way. And
Right.
my kids are like, all of it. I was like, I know. No, theirs is actually quality time. Yeah, I think, which makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's a combination of quality time and words of affirmation. I noticed that I'm really attracted to people who care about what I do and ask me
Yeah.
about my business, because my business is really important to me and I spend so much time doing it that like it feels like my whole life, which is part of my problem. I get wrapped up in my careers.
Yeah.
but if there's somebody who is like interested in what I'm doing and wants to know more about it, then it's like it's extremely attractive to me. It's like I want to spend more time with that person because I'm helpful to them, but at the same time they're encouraging me as well. So I mean, I don't know, I'm still in the learning process of being able to say words of affirmation to myself, which I didn't even realize was a thing, but
Yeah,
it's a big thing too.
it is. Yeah, I know. So yeah. So I know with the hypnotherapy, you know, I told you I was studying.
Mhm.
It's really it's really what I think is really fascinating is our brainwave states, right? So so we operate um, most of the time in like this faster beta brainwave state, right? And so like especially probably us because we're like thinking, at least me, like I'm always thinking, you know, thinking and imagining and, you know, coming up with new ideas or dwelling on ideas or, you know, thinking about possibilities and what does that mean and over interpreting everything. So that's where my brain is most of the time, but everybody's brain is mostly there. Alpha is a little slower, right? And brainwave state. And it's, if you think about daydreaming, right? It's like, so we're a little more relaxed. And then theta is an even deeper, more relaxed. So you think about like when you're meditating, right? Or if you've ever done that, or if you think about like when you're falling asleep or you just wake up and you're not quite awake and you're not quite asleep, it's kind of that in between. Or a lot of times if you're like watching a really good movie and you're so into it, or you're driving, you know, if you're like been driving and you get to work and you're like, oh, like I don't even remember that drive, right? You know, done it a million times. It's kind of that, it's like a relaxed and focused state at the same time.
Mhm.
But anyway, it's really interesting because that it's in that place where you're able to kind of like access and even reprogram those subconscious beliefs. And so if you want to, so it's definitely really helpful, right, to say words of affirmation to yourself. One, you have to believe them to some extent, right?
Right.
So you can't go from A to Z, right, or one side to the other. You really have to. So sometimes, so the school that I'm in, it's amazing. I love it. It's called Grace Space Hypnotherapy. She has a book called Close Your Eyes, Get Free, which is it's a great book, and it really like kind of like lays it out pretty simply. And but essentially your subconscious needs something that it can believe, right? And so one of the things that she does, or one of the things that we do, is we say like every day in every way, or something is happening more and more, right? So it's kind of like, it's a little softer. It makes it more believable. If I were to say like, and I'm trying to think of what, like, I love myself, or whatever it is, like, I'm amazing. I love myself so much. You come up whatever it is. You're gonna be like, no, that's not, like, your subconscious is gonna be like, well, that's not true, because that's not, my feeling's gonna reject it. But if you said something like, every day in every way, I'm beginning to love myself more and more, right? Or I'm open, or I'm loving myself more and more. Or every day in every way, I'm tuning into my needs, or I'm focusing on what I need. It could be whatever you want, like whatever speaks to you. But I've really found that I found that sometimes I'll start right with an affirmation, and even if I do it when I'm waking up, or I do it when I'm falling asleep, or like when I'm walking the dog, right? But I'll start with something, and I'll start with it like something like, a little gently like that. And then that eases me into feeling more comfortable than than dropping the every day in every way. And then I really do feel like I can believe it. But it's one way that I think I'm trying to support myself, because those are the roots and the beliefs, right, that are keeping us where we are. They're recreating the same patterns, right? And it's like we can work and effort and work and work and work and work, right? But if we're not like to get something, follow everybody's blueprint or framework, or whatever worked for them. But if we have these underlying beliefs around our worth, our value, how deserving we are of love, right, and what's possible for us, and what's not, like, we're just going to keep repeating, like, we're going to sabotage ourselves and keep creating the same experience over and over and over. And so that's what got me into that. And that's how I'm now trying to incorporate that with the career coaching, because I see so many people that are stuck in their careers. So some of it is, you're right, like clarity. It's like, what do I even want to do? I've been looking externally for so long, like, what is it that's going to light me up? And then so even though once you have that clarity, and then you know what to do, right? Or and then there's like, well, then how do I do it? Like, how do I move from A to B, right?
Right.
Right. Like, I have strategies for that too. And it's not, what you typically do, right? Like, I think we said earlier, instead of, figuring out what B is and then creating a plan for doing it, or just jumping, like, I'm going to quit my job and then I'm going to do this. It's like, how about first we just test our assumptions? Like, I think that B is what I want, but like, how can I find small ways to experiment and see if that is really what I want, right? It's like, I might like animals, but that doesn't mean I should be a veterinarian, right? Because there's a whole bunch of work inside of that. Like, for me, when I was in school, I was a psychology major first. I had a lot of majors, but psychology was my first one. And then I started working with some social workers. I did an internship with some social workers, and I actually started seeing what the work was. And I was like, oh no, like, I don't want that to be my life. Like, that is not what I want. Right. So it's like good that I had that experience, because I was like, well, if that's not what I want, what do I want? Right. Like, what was it about it that drew me to it? What did I like? What did I not like? And then I can take, it's almost like data collecting, right? Like, I can take those inputs and keep track of them, and it helps me get a little bit closer. But without that experience, I wouldn't have known that about myself, right? So I think a lot of people also, they'll be like, well, I'll test something out to see if people like it or if I'm good at it. It's like, no, you should test it out to see if you enjoy it, to see what parts of it you enjoy, what parts you don't, and just trust. Because I think there are also a lot of limiting beliefs around, well, that's not a career. That can't be a career. I can't just do that. It's like, how about just let go of, like, what you think is possible, and just keep, keeping track of, like, what it is that you want more of and what you want less of.
Yeah.
And then keep your eyes open for those things.
And part of it too is how dedicated you are to it. Like, I wanted to write for the longest time, and I started a new blog every January for like 6 or 8 years. And I, wrote 2 or 3 blog posts and nobody ever read it. And I thought, oh, well, I must be a terrible writer because nobody reads it. And then I kind of had this epiphany. It was like, you know what? I'm going to write regardless of whether people read it or not. And I want to write about things that are so important to me that maybe I don't want anybody to read it. And it's totally fine if nobody reads it. But then because I was so dedicated to it and kept writing and kept writing and kept sharing it with other people, then the people came. My audience came and they started sharing it with their friends and on social media. And all of a sudden, there's 100,000 people a month who read my blog because I'm dedicated to it and I keep showing up for them. Whereas if I would have asked my family or friends, do you think that I'm a writer? Do you think that I'm good at that? They would have been like, no, you don't ever write. You don't like writing. You never talk about writing. So what would make you think that you're a good writer? And to be honest, when I started out, I wasn't a great writer, and I'm probably not even a great writer now because I can't spell and I'm not really good at English and all those things. But I feel like it's more important the topics that I talk about rather than whether or not all of the sentences are completely perfect or that my writing style is 100% the way that it should be. But like you said, I mean, a lot of it is whether or not you're dedicated to it and you're willing to put in the time and effort to make it work, because writing can be a career, art can be a career, whatever. I mean, you can build a business around whatever it is that you want to, as long as you're dedicated to it and you put in the work and you show up and you're confident about it.
It's so true. I mean, like, you can make money. There are people that make money doing all kinds of things, right? Like, you can get really creative. But I think what you said is like, it's so important in the sense that, you were talking about continuing to show up. And I think part of that is also like, you have to be willing to be mediocre at something before you can be good at it, right?
Yes.
Or so there's two things there. One, you have to be willing to just be okay and not be the best person and not the great, right? And also, I think we've also kind of been conditioned to feel like, well, I shouldn't do it if I'm not good at it.
Yes.
Right? And it's so I'm trying to, I see this in my kids too. And I feel like the world tells us this, right? And so I feel like I'm constantly telling them, like, you can do something because you like it. You can just do it because you enjoy it. You can play soccer because it's fun. Yep. You don't have to be a good soccer player to be a soccer player.
I read this whole book because I have that same mentality. It's all or nothing. If I'm not good at it, I don't want to do it. But then how do you learn how to do anything new if you're not good at it? But I read this whole book by Malcolm Gladwell that's called The Outliers. Yes. And I read it on accident because I was looking for a book called The Outsiders and I didn't realize it was the wrong book.
Oh, that's the best story.
but I started reading it and I'm like, what is this book about? This is really interesting. And he was talking about people who are like professional hockey players or professional basketball players, people that we look at and we go, oh, those people are so lucky. They are so talented. And he does a bunch of research and he's like, they're not lucky. That's not how you get to be really good at something. You spend 10,000 hours doing something before you're actually really good at it.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
How long it takes you to spend 10,000 hours writing a blog.
You know? Well, no, it's so true. So my kids have also been watching bottle flipping videos, right? They're like, oh, look at this one. And it's like, yes, you also know he tried that 800 times before it landed there. Right. It's like, let's all like, I want you to know that actually didn't happen the first time he did it.
Right.
Probably recorded like hundreds, right? Like they're probably just recording everything. And then when it lands, they cut that out. And that's what they put on YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like, yes. Let's like I mean, because really that's, again, like they're walking around, like believing everything they see.
When you're on the other side of it too, because I've had a couple of people, my podcast is really important to me because I've been spending a lot of time, especially in the last 2 months, focusing on it. And at this point, when we're recording this, I have 26,000 downloads. And
for you,
yeah, I'm so super excited about it. And I never thought it would be that high, but I was talking to somebody about it and I'm like, I forget even what I was talking about, but I just mentioned that there was 26,000 downloads and they're like, oh, you must be so lucky. And I'm like, what do you mean lucky? I'm not lucky. Like, I was really mad about it because it's hard. It's not like I just put one episode up on Apple Podcast and 26,000 people listen to it without me doing any work. You know, it's like, this is something that I've spent 60 to 70 hours a week on for over a year. And because of that, because of all the work that I've done on Instagram and Facebook and my blog and all of that, I had an audience. So when I put my podcast out there, people listen to it. I mean, I don't know where people get this concept of, oh, I'll just record one episode and put it on Apple and people will just listen to it. I'm like, that's not how it works. And that was the same with my blog.
Yeah.
That was why I failed so many times before, because you can't just write a blog and put it on WordPress and expect people to read it. That's not how it works. You have to promote it. You have to tell people that it's there. And when you're able to do all of those things, then that's how you get people to read it. That's how you get people to listen to it. That's how it works. It's a lot of work.
You have a lot of good content too. You know what I mean? Like, you have a lot of really solid, helpful content. And I know, like, that's not something you just sit down and write in 20 minutes.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I
wrote something last weekend because I've been thinking a lot about self-love recently. And so I put together this masterclass on self-love because I'm like, I want to do a course on self-love because there's a lot of people who talk about it. And, you know, I'm fighting the whole imposter syndrome of I don't know everything, but there is a lot that I know that I want to share. So I started thinking about my story, and I'm writing this blog post with like tears streaming down my face, like pouring my heart out in this thing. And I put it out there and somebody comments on it. Wow, that was a great blog post. I hope you didn't just write it to sell something. Like, how rude is that? I'm like, okay. Like, all right.
And you're like, no comment.
Thanks for the feedback.
Oh,
it's like, one of those things that's, you know, I mean, there was some positive comments on it too, but at the same time, it's like, okay, I know I structured it at the end to look like a sales post because I was trying to draw people to this class that I think is really going to be helpful, but
you created something to help people based on your own personal experience.
Right.
And you want them to benefit from it. Yeah, when you were talking earlier, it reminded me of, so I do a lot of work. I have done a lot of work within organizations and even outside of around growth mindset, right? And when you were sharing your own personal example, are you familiar with growth mindset? Yeah, because when you were talking about, you read a book, in my head, I thought like, oh, I wonder if it's going to be growth mindset. But you know what I mean? It's really giving ourselves permission to not be good at something, but then also knowing that it's the effort that helps us become better, right? So if you think about like Michael Jordan, right? Like, how many shots did he take? All the shots. I mean, like, it's a ridiculous number, right? It's, you know, like, everybody's like, oh, like, look at all of these shots that he made. But like, when you really, and it's funny, there was a commercial that he made, maybe in the 80s or 90s, and it was a Nike commercial about all the shots he missed, right? So he even took the time, Nike did, to make a commercial around like, you know, here's all the shots he took that he didn't make. And yet everybody still remembers him for all the shots he did, right?
Right.
So it's like, we have to almost intentionally remind ourselves when we're talking about expanders and proving ourselves wrong, we might also need to look for examples of the people who did it messy, the people who tried and didn't make it. Or like, so there's a website called the Wayback Machine. Have you ever been on it?
Yeah.
Where you can look at like previous iterations of people's work, right? And it's a great way to see like how people started versus where they are now, because sometimes it's just like, we just need to reset our expectations, right? Like, we see all, like you were saying, we see all of the success and we don't look for the failure, right? So again, like, if we change what we're looking for, it's going to change how we think about it. It's going to change our expectations of ourselves, right? It's going to help us get messy. It's going to help us take action, learn from our mistakes, right? Like, we're trying to learn, like, we do to learn versus do to succeed. Then we're just going to, I mean, like, it's those are the kind of things that I think help us get further faster, even though it seems a little counterintuitive and it seems a little harder because it's not the way we're used to doing things, right? Like we said earlier, we're used to saying like, I want this job instead of this job, right? Like, oh, I think I'd love to do this. And so then we create a plan, we take some classes, right? And it's almost always we take classes, right? We read a book. It's like, no, it's like, I mean, at the very least, find somebody that does it and talk to them, right?
Yeah.
I have some resources around that if you would, if that would be helpful. It's like, how do you learn from other people? How do you create ways to do, to do something and learn from that without, taking that big jump? And I just think it's the new way of doing things.
Here's some takeaways from today's interview. Number 1, embrace who you are and how you are. Give yourself permission to be who you really are. Number 2, there are so many limiting beliefs around what careers we should have and what our purpose should be. It's important for you to figure out what those things are for you, which might be different from the norm. Number 3, there doesn't have to be one singular purpose in your life. It can evolve over time, and it doesn't have to be attached to your career. Number 4, the best person to assess your strengths is yourself, not everyone else. Number 5, be intentional about the people in your life, especially on social media. They have a bigger influence than you realize. Number 6, sometimes it's hard for us to admit what we want and what we need, but it's important to be able to do that. Number 7, self-love is a gradual process that takes time. Number 8, if you have underlying issues with self-love and confidence, your career will be affected by it more than you realize. Number 9, when you are doing something new, your level of dedication will make a huge difference. And number 10, you have to be willing to be mediocre when you start something new. It takes 10,000 hours of doing something before you get good at it. Remember, you can find all the links and show notes on my website, thequietonespodcast.com/episode 40. That's all that we have for today. Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure that you subscribe wherever you listen so you don't miss an episode. And one more reminder, you can watch all of the videos at youtube.com/thequietonespodcast. And there's additional videos on youtube.com/INFJwoman. Thanks again, and we'll see you on Thursday.